Well, so thanks for giving us your great analysis of this issue while we were waiting for Dean, who you've been running. I can tell you've been running. Something tells me it's something you're used to doing. Dean Karnazes is my guest. He was named by Time magazine as one of the top 100 most influential people in the world in 2006. In the January 2007 cover of Outside magazine hailed him as America's greatest runner. Look, this is the first of 3 pages, his bio. You know, I can read this and we'll never get to you. Here's the thing. You are known as the ultra-marathon man mainly because, as I understand it, you ran marathons, 50 marathons, 50 states in the United States, in the continental United States, 50 contiguous days. How is that even possible?
Making me tired just listening to this.
I'm tired thinking about it. How did you do that?
Well, logistically, it was incredible because we had to run a marathon, or I had to run a marathon,
right?
Hop on a bus and literally sometimes drive 10, 12 hours to the next state, and then sleep a couple hours, go out of the bus, and run another marathon.
So, did you place well in each of these marathons, or it was just an attempt to do them all, but you weren't particularly concerned about where you would finish?
I wanted to get through it. So it's funny, you'd think my body would break down over time, but the last of the 50 was my strongest of all 50 marathons. So I finished in 3 hours and 30 seconds, which is pretty decent. I mean, it's not world class, but it's for 49 marathons prior. It's a pretty good time. And I was trying to do my best, but also trying not to blow apart. I just didn't know what it was. Like a step into the unknown. I didn't know how far I'd make it. So saved it all kind of for the last marathon, and finished, less than a minute behind Lance, which was, I was proud of that, given that I had 49 marathons.
You also have run in the hottest and the coldest conditions on Earth. Yeah,
don't remind me.
you did a marathon across the desert?
Across Death Valley. It's called Badwater Ultra Marathon. Yeah, and it's 135 miles. Starts at Badwater, which is the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere, and runs across Death Valley, middle of summer, middle of sunlight, and finishes on the side of Mount Whitney, which is the highest point in the contiguous U.S. So the concept is lowest to highest. So not only is it across Death Valley, there's over 10,000 feet of elevation gain that you climb as you make your way across the course.
So a race like that, and the one that you did across, I'm sorry, I don't remember. I read about it, but it was in the dead of winter or someplace 20 below or something.
South Pole. Yeah.
South Pole. I mean, not just anybody qualifies to run in such a marathon.
No, I mean, you have to lack a substantial amount of intelligence to sign up for something like this.
Something like running that or coming on my show?
Both.
Huh? So you're here to run the New York Marathon, which is, my understanding, one of the world premier runs that there is. Why is it so well attended? The Kenyans always seem to be in the front of the pack. Yeah. I guess they run all the time there. They don't have cars. They run from village to village, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're obviously training very, very diligently as well, and they're elite athletes, as elite as you can get. So New York City's just got the aura about it. It was the last of the 50 marathons for me, so it's the 1-year anniversary of completing the 50 marathon row, and it just has special meaning. I mean, New York City is incredible, and it's a very international crowd. I mean, I've run marathons across the world, and nothing quite compares to New York City.
Yeah, you're also crossing bridges, and are you going through a tunnel also?
Tunnels, boroughs, all the boroughs. Yep, it's quite well attended by fans as
right.
well. I mean, there's 2 million people that line the streets, which is remarkable.
And it's televised as well.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting about the New York Marathon, I don't know whether they do this with the other marathons as well, but what I find extremely interesting about the New York Marathon is the first man and the first woman across is notable. The first person in a wheelchair across is getting almost as much attention. But what's really interesting about this city is the last person across, who is usually some handicapped individual who comes 2 or 3 days, at the back of the pack, but that marathon is still officially on, and that person still has a police escort. And there are people there to cheer that individual on after, the rest of you're out celebrating, sleeping, gone to another city, and there's still people cheering that person on.
Well, I think the marathon event itself is just tremendous because, there's certainly some, recognition for the winners, but there's a lot of recognition for the finishers. So many people approach the marathon as, I will be a champion if I finish. They know the Kenyans are going to be up there somewhere in the 2 hour and 5 to 10 minute range, and that's great. But their goal is to finish, and they define victory as finishing the marathon. It's that daunting of an event, and I think it's the one day in New York City where everyone kind of comes together in a great sort of way. I mean, the cab drivers are nice. No one's cutting you off. There's no honking as usual, and it's a great day in the city.
The other thing that's very interesting about marathon aficionados, the people who come out to watch, is they applaud everybody. They're not just looking for their friend or relative wearing number 542 or whatever. They're applauding everybody that comes by.
Yeah.
What does that do for you as a runner?
Oh, it just compels you to keep trying. And if there's any fans out there listening, I'll remind them to also bring their Halloween candy.
Hand it out?
Hand it out, because a lot of them are doing that along the way, and that helps too. So
water, you get water, handed water, Gatorade or whatever?
The fans along the course are tremendous. They bring, cut fruit, Gatorade. I've seen them help people that have fallen over. I mean, they're just out there to support all of the runners, like you said. I mean, certainly they're looking for their runner, but they're supportive of everyone.
We're going to call it, I think next year, we're going to sponsor it and call it the Paltalk New York Marathon. I wish we could afford to do that, but it's now called the INC something?
ING.
Yeah. Does that bother you that it's been so commercialized, or do you welcome the commercial support of the marathon?
It's kind of a double-edged sword, actually. It's interesting because it's become more corporate, as you said, which allows a lot better things to happen on the course. I mean, better support, better logistics. There's the downside that it kind of takes away from the grassroots of just running. Some of the other events that I do, some of the ultra marathons, which are 100, sometimes 150-mile trail runs, there's very little support along the course. So it's just the opposite. There's very little corporate involvement, and so I've kind of been immersed in both worlds. And there's good pluses and minuses for both. But it is what it is. I mean, it's funny, a lot of people don't even recognize who ING is. I mean, it's a big international financial institution.
Right.
But they
look at me, I call it INC. They're gonna say, Dean, couldn't you get him to say it right on the show, for God's sake? Are you sponsored?
I am. I work with a couple different great companies, a company called The North Face, if I can mention my sponsors.
Of course. No, you can't. Yeah. Get off here. Yeah, of course you can.
Nature's Path, which makes organic and all-natural cereal and energy bars, so I just love their energy bars. A company called Accelerate, which makes a sports beverage that's kind of like a industrial-strength Gatorade, if you will. It's got a 4-to-1 ratio of protein to carbohydrates, so you actually have some protein in there. Oakley sunglasses. So I've got a lot of great sponsors, and that's kind of made a go of it.
So the thing is, I've got to imagine, because you are such a fitness advocate, and I want to talk to you about that too, because I want to inspire all of us, those of us who can't run marathons, to do something, about this.
Never too late to start.
Well, it's always a good time to start after Halloween. That you mentioned the Halloween candy, but I would presume that you vet out all these sponsors. You're not going to just take anybody as a sponsor. It's going to be somebody that you personally support their product.
Absolutely. I mean, let's face it. I'm sponsored to the point that I can put food on my family's table.
Right.
It's not like a basketball